Hey, what's up, everybody? For this video, it's going to be a review of Tarantino 20, the 20th anniversary of Quentin Tarantino as a filmmaker. And this is a box set of Blu-rays featuring most of his movies. The set features Reservoir Dogs, which came out in 1990. Also features Pulp Fiction, 1994, Jackie Brown, 1997, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, 2003 and 2004, Inglourious Basterds from 2009. Oh, also features the True Romance, which he wrote in 1993. He sold the script, made a lot of money off of it. Also features Deathproof from the 2008 Grindhouse double feature. Also features the Inglorious Bastards from 2009. And I think that's about it. And we'll talk about Django Unchained and Dusk Till Dawn as well. When you first see this box set, you'll notice the artwork is it's really well done. You see just a whole bunch of animations from all the different movies, and it's a really cool set to have. And you also get a bonus disc with a Quentin Tarantino documentary and some question and answer things. It's like the ultimate Quentin Tarantino gift for his fans. So all right, so his first movie was Reservoir Dogs from 1990. What are your thoughts on Reservoir Dogs?
It was from 1992. Just to correct you, my thoughts on I was actually a little disappointed with this Blu-ray because the special features are actually there weren't as many special features on this disc as there were one of the original the DVD that came out a few years ago. Not the one that had the gasoline can. But the one before that, it had the full screen and the widescreen 2-disc, and that actually had more special features, and that was actually a better disc set for Reservoir Dogs than what they give you on this one. So I would actually criticize this box set at that point. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, obviously it's Tarantino's first, full-length feature film. It was a great movie, very dark, probably his darkest movie. So if you like dark movies, almost Shakespearean type movie, and you haven't seen Reservoir Dogs, I would definitely recommend it. For some people, it's still their favorite Tarantino movie. It's probably become one of my least favorite. But yeah, that's my take on Reservoir Dogs.
Was it too violent?
No, it's not too violent, but the violence is there for a reason. The violence is there. It's not just for shock value. It's to get into the minds of violent gangsters who hate cops, hate policemen, because you got to keep in mind that these gangsters are violent because they're fighting for their lives here. This is what they do. They rob banks, or they rob jewelry stores, and they do this to survive. And the cops are a direct threat to their ability to thrive and survive, and that's why they're violent. So you have to take that into account. That's one of the reasons why the violence is there. But Reservoir Dogs, that's a great movie because it's showing things after the heist. A lot of heist movies like Heat or some other heist movies, basically you're seeing it as it's going on. You don't really see much of the heist at all. You see a little bit of it, most of it, in fact all of it.
A lot of it, he leaves it to your imagination.
Yeah, everything's going on after everything goes down and everything goes wrong. The Reservoir Dogs is about a heist that goes all wrong, and one of the guys on the heist is an undercover cop.
That's Tim Roth, and I think many people agree Tim Roth was the best actor in the movie, even though it was a pretty solid cast.
Oh yeah, I agree. I love Tim Roth's performance. I think it was probably, to me, it was the standout performance. Some people will love to say Mr. Blonde is the standout performance, but by Michael Madsen. But
Harvey Keitel, yeah.
I think they were all brilliant. In terms of acting, I think they were brilliant.
The great thing about Reservoir Dogs for me is I just think it's hilarious. It's a very funny movie. The dialogue.
Yeah, no, there's some really funny lines.
Even though they're bank robbers or killers or cold-blooded characters, there's just so much colorful dialogue in the beginning, which most of Tarantino's movies are like that. They're just regular people, good-hearted people, but they all have that dark side.
Yeah. Yeah, although he gets into the minds and hearts of violent people, and these are all all violent men. And you see Tim Roth, he's supposed to be this sort of this Mr. Orange is supposed to be this hero, but he's forced to. That's the tragedy of it, is that he's forced to become as violent as they are. He's forced to take on that role, and eventually he ends up taking it on completely. As if you watch the whole movie, he has to take on that role completely and become just as violent as they are.
So what's your favorite part of the Reservoir Dogs? I have to say the diner scene in the beginning.
My favorite, the part that stands out to me is when you see the transformation, when Mr. Orange wakes up out of the bloody coma that he's in, and
the thing is, he has to remember all of his dialogue, and he has to basically train himself and just memorize how to become like what is it, a gangster or a bank robber? Yeah. How to fit in with these people, and that's just not an easy task.
Right. No, it's not an easy task, and he. Also, the scene that I have to mention that stands out to me is when he's telling the commode story. For those of you who have seen the movie, and he's sort of envisioning himself in this bathroom with 4 different policemen, and he's telling the story. That's such a great part of the movie, because that's how his character really feels. Is he's sort of surrounded by these men who could kill him, and as soon as they find one little suspicion of who he might actually be, that's how he is in the commode story. When he's explaining himself, when he's in this room full of police officers and he's selling weed, it's just a fake story, but in real life that's the position that he's in, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful scene when the camera pans around him. But True Romance, that was the script that he actually sold, that script so he could make the money for Reservoir Dogs. What do you think about True Romance?
What do I think about it? Christian Slater. It's a very, very violent movie once again, and the violence is kind of brutal, like a little bit too brutal. Featuring James Gandolfini, who's also in the movie from The Sopranos. So some of the scenes he was in were just very hard to watch. But it's Christian Slater's movie. It's a movie where I think people really took Christian Slater seriously. Yeah, he really wasn't. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a great actor, but in True Romance, I really thought he stepped up to the plate. And the writing was good. I was kind of disappointed with it, but
wow. It's funny because I definitely prefer True Romance to Reservoir Dogs. And Christian Slater's not a great actor, but he was a very likable actor. In Hollywood, if you're likable, you can get somewhere. James Gandolfini, Christopher Walken makes another cameo.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis Hopper plays Christian Slater's father. Patricia Arquette is beautiful, and I actually think she has probably the greatest performance in the movie. And I might be able to get a chance to say why. But it basically what True Romance is, it's every guy's wet dream. Christian Slater is a young guy, probably early to mid-20s. He falls in love with a hooker, who's only on her 3rd job, but they fall in love with each other. They find a whole caseload of drugs, and they go out to California, and they try and sell it, and then spend the rest of their lives spending. True Romance, to me, it's a fantasy movie. It was not directed by Tarantino. It was directed by Tony Scott. Rest in peace, Tony Scott. If you know Tony Scott, he was Ridley Scott's brother. To me, it's one of my favorite movies. I absolutely love it, and I recommend it. There's a lot of great performances in it. Rob, you're right. It is very violent. There is one scene in particular with Patricia Arquette and James Gandolfini. James Gandolfini actually goes and brutally beats up Patricia Arquette. This is a big, bulky bear of a man beating up this woman, and she doesn't back down. She fights back. And that scene in particular, that's probably one of the most violent scenes in the movie, and she's just brilliant in it. And I love her because I think she, in particular, she had to be this sort of fantastical girl. She had to play this one-dimensional character for the story to work. I think as a female character, I think she's extremely one-dimensional up until that point, and then she becomes multi-dimensional, and that's why I love that character, Patricia Arquette. I think for her as an actress to sort of have to take that and then become multi-layered as the movie went on, I think I respect that a lot in her, and I don't think that was an easy role for her to play as an actress, because she had to be cutesy and she had to be perfect and she had to be the ditzy blonde throughout most of it, and then she sort of switches when that scene with James Gandolfini comes about, and you see that she's more than that. This is somebody who's been kicked around all her life. This is somebody who has had a very hard life, and she's persisted through it. And so that's one of the reasons why I love that movie.
So do you think if Tarantino had full creative control over directing True Romance, if he didn't really need the money at the time, do you think True Romance would be kind of like regarded in the same light as Pulp Fiction?
I don't know.
It didn't make a lot of money, right? True Romance.
It did well. I think it did
yeah.
well. It's not regarded as like it didn't change the game like Pulp Fiction. People look at Pulp Fiction like it was a major game changer in cinema. You know, it has that cult following. A lot of independent movies followed Pulp Fiction, and we'll get to Pulp Fiction in a second. But I think that if Tarantino had directed True Romance, it would have been more of a tragedy. And not as much of a fantasy. Tony Scott actually changes the ending, and at first Tarantino had a big issue with it, but then Tony Scott explained it to him, and he said,
but he still wasn't convinced.
Right. It's not complete. What Tarantino said, and you'll see this is in the special features, they have an alternate ending where Tarantino explains his original ending, which is why I think that this part of the box set is really great. Is that Tarantino says for Tony Scott's movie, he understands why he ended it that way. But if Tarantino, if he had directed it, he would have definitely had it end in more of a tragic way. But Tony Scott kind of treats the movie like it's this fantasy adventure and this dream.
Yeah, the movie ends with like Caribbean music.
Yeah,
and like going off into the sunset. Yeah.
And I love it. I'm glad he ended it that way.
All right, so let's waste some time. Let's talk about Pulp Fiction, the mega blockbuster hit. It made a lot of money. Obviously, it's not his most successful movie. I think Django Unchained might have topped all of them, but I use Pulp Fiction's obviously is one of my favorite movies of all time, probably my favorite if you really think about it. But I always run into people that say, "Oh, I can't stand that movie. I couldn't get through the whole thing. I don't see what the big deal about Pulp Fiction is." But personally, for me, it's one of those movies you need to watch a couple times to let sink in. The first time you watch it, you really don't know what's going on, but in a good way. You kind of feel like you're escaping reality and you're like lost in this movie that just goes all over the fucking place. But it's but I think the more you watch it, the more you gain an appreciation for it. You got to let it sink in a couple times. How do you respond to people that say like it's too violent and I don't get what the big deal is about Pulp Fiction?
Well, I respond the same way that you say, because I noticed when you mentioned True Romance, the first thing you mentioned was the violence. And it's funny, for these Tarantino movies, the last thing that I think about now is the violence, and the first thing that I think about usually is the characters.
The characters.
I think about the characters first and foremost. And while Pulp Fiction isn't my favorite movie, I love it, and no other movie, none of his other movies have influenced me or made me feel as just cool, because I watch these movies, these movies, and Pulp Fiction in particular, when I'm watching them, I feel like I'm hanging out with the characters. I feel like I know Vincent Vega and Jules Winsfield.
Well, I think Jackie Brown's a better example of a hangout movie, but.
Oh yeah, no, that's the hangout movie. But with this movie, I really feel like I'm like when they go to the diner or they're talking about cheeseburgers. I feel like I'm sitting with them in the car, and I just feel so connected to those characters. And when shit does happen, when shit does hit the fan, when somebody's head gets blown off, or somebody ODs on heroin, or somebody gets run over by a car, it's like, what the hell just happened? Pulp Fiction's a great movie for anybody to watch, because what you're looking for is that moment where shit hits the fan and you didn't expect it. Right. That's what's so cool about it to me. And for the people who don't like it, I think maybe they're not getting that. I think they don't get that it's not just about, Pulp Fiction isn't about the bang. It's about the build up to the bang. It's not about just somebody getting their head blown off. It's about what happens before and then the aftermath of what happens when somebody's head does get blown off. The Bonnie situation, which is the last section of the movie, it's not about, you know, who shot who, or in like a lot of movies, someone got his head shot, so we're going to go shoot someone else in the head. No, it's not about that. It's about two guys cleaning up a car after they blow somebody's head off. And for a lot of people, they're not used to that in cinema. They're not used to that in Hollywood. They're used to action movies where, you know, 20 guys get their heads blown off. In this one, it's just one guy, and they spend the next 35-40 minutes of the movie cleaning up a car, and you're like, really? This is what we're gonna do? We're gonna watch these guys clean up a car? No, we're gonna hang out with them, watch them get themselves cleaned up, watch them clean up the car, watch Harvey Keitel come in and do his thing. And for a lot of people, that's weird and that doesn't make sense. I think that's why they don't like Pulp Fiction, because it's not about what happens. Like Reservoir Dogs, it's about what happens after the action, after the event, which for some moviegoers is more compelling. For me, it's become more compelling to look at characters and how they react and how they explode. And if you look at John Travolta's character and Samuel L. Jackson's character in the Bonnie situation, is probably the best example of it. They both butt heads in that section of the movie. And in Sam Jackson, this is one of the reasons why he's ready to leave this life of being a gangster, and he talks more about that when he gets to the diner. And Vincent Vega, John Travolta's character is just willing to just sort of roll with the punches. Sam Jackson's like, I've had enough of this shit. I'm cleaning up, you know, bits of brain out of the back of a car. I've had enough of this shit. I think that's what people aren't getting. They're not seeing that these characters are going through this struggle and this conflict of years and years of just, you know, not wanting to deal with this crap anymore. And Bruce, you also see that in the Bruce Willis character. Yeah, I think you see a little.
He's sick of boxing, right?
Yeah, right. He's sick of, you know, having to, you know, live, you know, hotel room to hotel room, match to match, and he wants to get out. He wants to get away, and that is, to me, compelling. And I think that's what people are missing is they're looking for the action, they're looking for the event, but Pulp Fiction shows them the characters' sort of frustration and the aftermath of those events. So,
well, I think the main problem is people don't have enough patience to put the pieces together in order of the story. I don't think they're really trying to figure out, you know, what happened where, what happened with this. Because it doesn't make any sense to them the first time, they'll just give up on it.
Because they're looking for that sequence of plot. They're looking for a sequence of events.
And I think most people are kind of dumb and won't even put it together. They'll just say, "Oh, that didn't make sense to me, so let me just say the movie sucked."
It doesn't matter. Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that it doesn't matter what the order is. To me, I'm glad that I think people have said if they did put it in order, it would really suck, and I agree with that. I think the fact that he puts it out of order is actually better for the story he's trying to tell.
Yeah. There's probably some people that see Travolta get killed, and they're like, oh, well, why is he back? Without even trying to think about it.
Right, exactly. That's weird. I understand why people think that's weird. That's a very independent film thing to do. You know, in most Hollywood movies, somebody dies, they're dead. You don't see him again unless it's like a flashback, like The Godfather 2. You know, at the very end, you see all the brothers there again after that they're already dead, but it's a flashback. This isn't a flashback. This is Tarantino basically just saying, well, we're going to jump back here now. Because Tarantino is the master of his movie. He can do whatever the hell he wants, and he does that with Django Unchained. He does that with a lot of his movies. He takes liberties with his sequence of events. He does what he wants to do, and a lot of directors don't have that power.
And the great thing about Pulp Fiction also is the dialogue. There's so many memorable lines. He even said this, like his films are like records. You could just play them back over and over again. You could just, you know, try to go to sleep to it, and then, you know, you just listen to the dialogue. It's just it just feels good. And you could even memorize the whole movie and it just flows, right?
Oh, absolutely, man. It's totally cool. One of my good friends who recently just got married, his brother is autistic, and I'm not making fun of him. His brother's such a cool kid, but he's autistic, and he's got I can't help but feel like that has something to do with how good his memory is. He recited an entire Pulp Fiction scene word for word without putting any influx of character into it. He just sort of kept saying it. You know, don't Jimmy me, Jules. You see the sign on my lawn that says dead something storage? You know, do you see the sign on my lawn that says dead something storage? Well, it's not there because storing dead you know what ain't my friggin' business. You know, he was basically just reciting the entire scene, you know, word for word, and it was hilarious. No, seriously, for those of you out there, Tarantino's even said he would put Pulp Fiction in the comedy section because there are so many memorable, funny lines. It's a very funny movie, and the dialogue is just it's poetic. Yeah.
And maybe we could talk about the whole Spike Lee situation as well, as he criticized Tarantino for overusing the word nigger several times. I could say, because I don't mind saying it.
Is that this video or is that another video?
We could touch on it just a little bit.
Okay,
Jackie, all right, he mainly had a problem with it in Jackie Brown, but we'll get back to that later. But Jackie Brown, this came out in 1997. Basically, it's a blaxploitation. It was inspired by the blaxploitation films from Pam Grier's past, but it's based on a book called Rum Punch. Samuel L. Jackson actually plays Ordell Roby, who is a gun salesman, and Jackie gets in trouble. She's an airline stewardess, but she gets in trouble because she gets caught with weed in her luggage. So,
actually, it was cocaine.
Or yeah, cocaine. Yeah.
Sorry to correct you. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I don't want to spoil the whole storyline. I'm actually talking about what the whole movie's about. But yeah, with the great thing about Jackie Brown is it's a hangout movie. It's just the characters are more well defined. This is more of a linear story. It's based on a book, but I don't know. Once again, the dialogue is just really, really colorful, and it's one of those movies again where you need to watch a couple times for it to really let it sink in.
I agree, and you know, talking about the people who just didn't get Pulp Fiction, I'm going to tell you something here. Some people really like Jackie Brown who maybe didn't care for Pulp Fiction, but then there were some people who loved Pulp Fiction and expected Jackie Brown to be similar, and it's not. I mean, it's similar in some of the feel, that hangout feel. You get more, you feel like you're really hanging out with these characters. You know, Sam Jackson plays he deals guns. You know, he's an arms dealer. You know, Robert De Niro's in it. Robert De Niro plays an amazing role. He's very, you know, sort of passive, and he's kind of really
ex-bank robber, really
quiet. Right, he's an ex-bank robber, and he just kind of hangs out on the couch most of the movie. Bridget Fonda plays this surfer girl with, you know, toe rings. She's very hot, but she just basically smokes weed and gets high all day. And Pam Grier is this super sexy, fine black woman. You know, she's an airline stewardess. And what's really great about this movie to me is that all these people, one similar to some of the characters in Pulp Fiction, but even more so, they're all past their prime. But they all have shades of their former glory. Whether you're Sam Jackson, and you see it mostly in Pam Grier's character. We're talking about the woman who played Coffee and Foxy Brown. She was the sexiest black woman, maybe the sexiest woman of the 70s. And here she is, she's 40, 45 years old. She works for an airline making $16,000 a year. And she's got this cool strut and everything, and this cool suit, and she looks great. But she's an airline stewardess, and she makes $16,000 a year. And she brings money back from Mexico to this arms dealer played by Sam Jackson. So all these people are past their prime, but they're all so cool. You know, they're also, you still want to hang out with them, and it really is. Let me tell you, for people who loved Pulp Fiction, this is a different movie. This is a slower paced movie. It's more character driven. You know, Pulp Fiction is driven more by, I would say, so like a lot of the shit that hits the fan, you know, the crazy shit that happens, and then characters get into, okay, now the characters have to deal with this crazy shit that just happened. You know, Jackie Brown is less about crazy shit that happens and more just about really survival. survival once you get to that middle age. And it was a very mature movie for a young director like Tarantino to make at that time. And he did an amazing job. And it's just a beautiful movie, great soundtrack. And Robert Forster is another guy, and I didn't mention him. I love that man. Another dude, once again, you know, he's older, you know, middle age, probably 50, 55, past his prime. But he still has shades of his former glory.
And probably the best scene in the movie is the Beaumont benefactor scene with Chris Tucker.
Oh, Chris Tucker, yeah. How could you forget Chris Tucker? Yeah, yeah. That was a great scene. A lot of improvisation in that scene, actually.
But the genius behind the movie for me is, you know, Jackie Brown. Really, it's really unpredictable because she basically lures everybody in. She lures the cops in, Samuel L. Jackson, her boss, and Robert Forster as well. So she has these three people helping her out. Or they're all supposedly they're all working together, but eventually you realize that she's only going to side with one of them, and the other two are going to get screwed in some form or fashion. So that's kind of one of the more memorable things about the movie as well.
Yeah, that's where the plot goes. I always tell my friends I'm terrible at describing plot. So if you're sitting there wondering what the hell is this movie about, it's because I suck at describing plot. I'll talk about one shot and how great the light was in the shot, or how great the acting was in that one scene. But when it comes to telling people what a movie's actually about, I'm terrible at that. So don't expect that's your job, Robin. But no, I think that's pretty accurate.
Oh, it's a cool storyline. I mean, she has to bring in all this money from Mexico to Samuel Jackson, the gun dealer. So she's Samuel Jackson thinks she's actually bringing over $500,000. Meanwhile, she brings it over, but you know, she puts a whole bunch of books in the bag. So when they do the money exchange, the money's not there. Samuel Jackson gets pissed off, and then, you know, that's pretty much where the plot escalates, and then people get killed. But I think the storyline and the whole plot was very innovative.
I agree. I think it's pretty cool. Michael Keaton's in there too. Some great scenes, great acting from Michael Keaton, and he plays the ATF man. He also played the same character in a movie called I forget the name of that movie. It was with Jennifer Lopez and George Clooney. It came out like a year or two later. But yeah, no, great. Once again, great actors, great performances. Totally cool. Just great movie. Very slow. It's a slow-paced movie. If you like slow-paced movies, it's definitely for you.
All right. So next up is Kill Bill Volume 1, 2003, starring Uma Thurman. I mean, yeah, I like the Kill Bill movies, but this really wasn't more about the dialogue. This is more about, you know, I think Tarantino's artistic vision and some of the action sequences, which he just really delivered. And he actually thinks this is probably his best work, were some of the things that Uma Thurman did, you know, some of the action scenes.
Yeah, and I think you know, a lot of the people listening to this video might be more familiar with the Kill Bill movies. I could be wrong in assuming that. I will say Kill Bill Volume 1 is actually it's my least favorite Tarantino movie, because I just don't like the structure of it. The structure of it just doesn't work for me. But I do love the House of Blue Leaves segment where everybody knows the House of Blue Leaves, where she takes on the Crazy 88s and she fights Oren Ishii. Love that. That's one of my favorite things from Tarantino. But as a whole, Kill Bill Volume 1 just doesn't work for me all that well. There are some amazing scenes, but you make a good point. This is him sort of paying respect to the Hong Kong genre movies. Yeah. He's paying homage to that genre.
It was kind of frustrating the way he did it too, because I think after you see 1, you really want to see what's going to happen in 2, and instead you have to wait around for 6 months for it to come out. So I think a lot of people were kind of frustrated.
Yeah, and if you're interested if you haven't seen the Kill Bill movies, I would definitely check Kill Bill Volume 1 out, because you might like Volume 1 better than you like Volume 2. That's how I originally felt, but now I like Volume 2 is actually my favorite Tarantino movie, and I'll get to that and to why Volume 2 is my favorite. But I do find it very strange that Volume 1 is my least favorite and Volume 2 is my favorite. It's kind of weird. But Volume 1 has a lot more action. than Volume 2. Volume 1, so if you really dig action and you like gore and you want to see some samurai fighting, Volume 1 is for you. Volume 1 is all about Uma Thurman kicking ass. I think Volume 2 is more about Uma Thurman getting her ass kicked. So yeah. So that's my take on
Volume 2 did have some killer scenes when she punched her way out of the grave. I've never seen anything like that. I think, I mean, did he steal that from a movie, or was that his own idea?
That's a good question. I don't know that for sure, but
because I think when you see a Tarantino movie, you always see something that you've never really seen before.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Right. This generation hasn't.
This generation.
This generation, our generation. You know, obviously, he was very influenced by movies that came out in the '70s. But in Volume 2 in particular, while Volume 1 was more, you know, paying homage to some of the Hong Kong films, Volume 2 is paying homage to a lot of the spaghetti westerns.
Right.
In fact, they even use music from some of the Clint Eastwood movies, like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. They actually use some of that music. I think Ennio Morricone was the name of the composer. They actually used some of that. The music in Volume 2 is amazing. The soundtrack is amazing. The score, done mostly by Robert Rodriguez.
Also, the training scenes when she trained with, was it Pai Mei?
Pai Mei.
Yeah, that was some great stuff.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
They showed how Uma became what she was. Yeah. And a lot of the stuff you saw in Kill Bill Volume 1, which might have seemed a little bit cheesy, a lot of it made sense by the time you saw Volume 2.
That's a really good point. And you know, someone brought something up recently in Volume 1 during the House of Blue Leaves fight. I don't know, do you remember when it goes black and white? There's a part where she takes out the guy's eye, and she picks out his eye during the House of Blue Leaves fight, and it goes black and white. And during that time, she starts doing all these things that you haven't seen her learned yet. And I always have thought that the reason why it goes black and white is because you don't see her learn a lot of those things until Kill Bill Volume 2. Yeah. You know, when Pai Mei, her master, teaches her. And someone told me recently that the reason it goes black and white is because they wanted to avoid getting an NC-17 rating.
Oh, okay.
And that's why they turned it black and white. And I was like, really? Because I thought it made sense for them to go black and white from an artistic standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, in that she hadn't learned that stuff yet. So I always thought that was really cool. And if it is because they were trying to avoid an NC-17, I think it's cool that it goes black and white anyway. It gives us a different perspective. But just to give you guys an even better, you know, as a director, Tarantino really showed how good he can be as a visual director. Visually, the Kill Bill movies might be just as stunning or more stunning than anything he's ever done. I think if you look at the House of Blue Leaves in Volume 2, and you look at some of the scenes where she's, you know, with Bill in the hacienda, and she's driving, you know, in Mexico to meet Bill's father figure. Some of the most beautiful cinematography I've ever seen, and some of the best work he's ever done.
Well, he really took his time on it. He took 6 years off, so he had enough time to really put together an awesome movie.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. So Kill
Bill Volume 1, Volume 2. So after that, he did Deathproof from 2008, which was a part of a double feature, right?
Part of a double feature called Grindhouse with Robert Rodriguez's Planet Terror. Now, Planet Terror is not included in this, of course, but Deathproof is. And Deathproof is... I like Deathproof. When I saw both of those movies, I was with my two friends from New Jersey, and we went to go see it, and there were a whole bunch of bikers and guys with trench coats, you know, there. They were the rowdiest movie crowd I've ever been with. It was the greatest movie experience I've ever had. I friggin' loved it. Is Deathproof a great movie? No. Is it a fun movie? Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I love it. You just get to see a whole bunch of hot chicks. They're drinking beers, they're taking shots. You get to see one woman do a lap dance, and then Kurt Russell comes out, and he basically is a killer with a car. So if you've seen a slasher movie like Halloween or Jason, you know,
what's that Lawrence better? The Intruder.
The Intruder. Any of these like these B horror movies where you got a guy with a knife. Kurt Russell is basically a slasher, but instead of using a knife, he uses his car. He's a stunt man, and he uses his car to basically mow down these hot chicks. It's a grindhouse picture.
Yeah. It is what it is. Yeah.
It is what it is. It's supposed to be that way, and I like it. Well, what's your opinion on it? I thought you were.
No, it's not. No, it's probably my least favorite Tarantino movie. Yeah, of course. But yeah, it's pretty crazy though. It's a I don't know, for some reason it was kind of frustrating because he did it with Uma Thurman and Kill Bill, and then it seemed like he did it again with Deathproof, where the theme was, you know, chicks that kick ass or chicks that get revenge. So that's not really. I'm more of a Tarantino dialogue fan. I like to watch for the characters and the dialogue, even more so than the violence and the revenge. Mm-hmm. So after Deathproof.
Oh, let me just say this about Deathproof. If you're going to go buy this box set, this is the Blu-ray that you drink to. When you have this movie on, that's when you have your screwdriver. That's when you take a couple of shots. You have a six-pack with you. You have some friends with you. Watch Deathproof with a group of friends. You'll have a much better experience.
In 2009, Inglourious Basterds. This was the long-awaited war movie. He was talking about doing the war movie for years. Yeah, I think he even got the idea during Pulp Fiction or whatever. This took like forever to come out. This starred Brad Pitt and Christoph Waltz. This is what made Christoph Waltz a star in the United States. This is one of the movies I need to watch more. I only watched it once actually, but a lot of people do consider this his best movie and his best work.
Yeah, and it's not my favorite Tarantino movie. I do love it though. I do think Christoph Waltz, when I think back, he did such an amazing job with that character. And one thing that some people aren't hot on with this is the fact that a lot of the movie is in German and French. And they switch back, so you're going to hear a lot of German, a lot of French, a tiny, tiny bit of Italian, and probably one of the funniest scenes toward the end of the movie with Brad Pitt. But then, of course, Brad Pitt and the Americans, the American Jews, they'll speak a lot of English. And so Brad Pitt is basically basically he's the leader of this band of soldiers, American Jewish soldiers, and they call themselves the Inglorious Bastards, and they go around killing Nazis. It doesn't get much better than that, folks. I mean, when I heard about that and I saw the trailer, I was like, "This is going to be awesome." You got a bunch of American Jewish soldiers going around killing Nazis. Now that sounds like a very one-dimensional plot, and in it of itself, it is quite one-dimensional. But I think you get multi-dimension, you get more of a dimension with Christoph Waltz's character. He plays a German, I want to call him a general. And his name is Hans Landa, and he's basically like a German investigator going out and trying to hunt the Jews out of France. The movie takes place in France in I want to say 1942, 1943, somewhere around that time. And basically, one thing, if you're a fan of history and you like, historically accurate movies, let me tell you something. This is not a historically accurate movie. Tarantino plays with history a lot. Not just a little bit like The Patriot with Mel Gibson, where they just sort of say, hey, here's Braveheart, only we're going to call it The Patriot. I like the movie too, don't get me wrong. They friggin' go all the way with it. Tarantino, basically, if you watch all the way, he plays with history a lot, almost to the point where you have to laugh because he has who ends up dying and who ends up, getting killed. It's like, oh, come on, but it's for fun. It's a revenge movie. And it's another revenge movie, with Tarantino. But there's also romance there, and it's an appreciation for, I think people who see this have more of an appreciation for German culture and French culture, and just awesome. Just a lot of really good, intense. Well,
I think that's why he's such a great filmmaker, because when he grew up, he just wasn't watching American movies, but he has a very, very knowledgeable about international movies as well. And I think that's probably the key to him, just not just focusing on the American aspect, but producing a movie with foreign dialogue as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Tarantino's he's less interested in what actually happened during the war. He's more interested in people's perceptions of what people were like during that time and during times and so that's why, you know, Brad Pitt gets to play. Brad Pitt is basically John Wayne. You know, he plays that John Wayne type character, you know, killing Nazis, and the German soldiers are, in a way, our Americans' perception of what German soldiers were. And, you know, same thing goes for French and Italian. I think he really plays on the stereotypes. And, yeah, I mean, I think he's really, you know, he's more interested in what people were, so the people's perceptions of those people were like. But at the same time, he also strikes a chord, and I think he actually ends up being a little more accurate than some other filmmakers have tried to be. People talk more about Inglourious Basterds than they do about Valkyrie, for example, with Tom Cruise. That movie just kind of got dusted under the carpet, and they were trying to be accurate, but they weren't. And Tarantino just comes out and says, "I'm not going to be accurate. I'm just going to fucking blow everything up," and that's what he does.
Okay, so do you feel like Dusk Till Dawn should have been on the set?
Oh, that's a good question. I do feel like From Dusk Till Dawn should have been on the set.
It's his biggest acting role, though, you know?
It's his biggest acting role. He wrote the script, and he wrote I think he wrote most of the story.
Assisted with the dialogue.
Yeah, he assisted with the dialogue, and honestly, I think they did miss a piece there. I really do feel like From Dusk. That's one of my favorite movies from, you know, Tarantino and Rodriguez. You know, it's kind of like it's like another Grindhouse movie to me.
Yeah, it is.
And no, I would have loved to see that on there. But aside from that, you know, I'm a big fan of the box set. But
it's funny because I feel like Dusk Till Dawn, like that first half of the movie is just so good. It just feels like another Tarantino movie. But then the second half with vampires, you know, it just is what it is. I feel like, you know, you could have done so many different directions with the second half of that movie. So it's just kind of a shame.
Right, exactly. But you know what? A lot of people like the vampire. I've talked with a few other people about this movie, and I always mention that as a joke. Yeah, I love it until the vampires come out, and they go, well, that's the whole point, is for the vampires to come out. So some people, I'm sure some people watching this video really like horror movies and really like that genre, you know, horror and slasher and monster movies. And if you love that, of course you.
Well, I mean, it would have been. You could have done so many different things. Like maybe they could have got thrown in jail. Maybe you had cops come over the border and try to take them out. I don't know. I just feel like it just got too cheesy with the vampire thing.
It would be a different movie.
It'd be a different movie, yeah.
What would you call it? It wouldn't be From Dusk Till Dawn. Maybe you could call it... But
I felt like the characters were in such a good place, though. It's just a shame how the movie just kind of fumbled the way it did, in my opinion. I don't know. But, but it is what it is. It's one of those, you know, grindhouse... you know, slasher films.
Either way, it's too bad they didn't put that on the box set. I wonder why they didn't, because they did have True Romance, and True Romance was maybe people think maybe it's people's perception that True Romance is more of a Tarantino movie than From Dusk Till Dawn.
And plus, Tarantino was probably the most interesting character about the movie, the whole rapist thing. You could have definitely played off of that, you know, more with the relationship between him and Juliette Lewis, and then maybe his brother turns on him, or so many things could have happened.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, no, the movie could have gone in a different direction, but I think they could have. Who knows, man? Who knows what would have happened? It really did. It felt like half of that movie was Tarantino and half of it was Rodriguez.
Yeah, it did. Yep. All right, so the other one was Django Unchained. Where do you think Django Unchained's gonna?
Well, just to be clear, so they know, From Dusk Till Dawn and
Dusk Till Dawn is not on the set, and Django Unchained obviously is not on the set.
Right.
But where do you think Dusk Till Dawn would rank with the Tarantino movies?
Oh, that's tough. It's definitely not one of my favorites. I definitely enjoy the movie. I love watching it, but for the same reason, I'm not a big fan of the whole vampire thing. It's funny because John Travolta was going to play George Clooney's character originally from Dusk Till Dawn before he signed on for Pulp Fiction, and he went to Tarantino and he said, you know, I'd rather do Pulp Fiction. I'm not a big fan of vampires. I'm not into the whole vampire thing. I'm the same way. I'm not crazy about the whole vampire thing. But it was, you know, it's still a good movie. I still enjoy it. I usually start drinking when that part comes on. I usually drink beer to most of the Tarantino movies. I feel like those are movies that I can drink to are my favorite movies because I don't have to take them too seriously. And I don't have to take Tarantino's movies too seriously. That's just how I am with them. Django Unchained was great. I saw it in the movie theaters twice. But unfortunately, as much as I love it, it'll never match up to what I saw in a theater because I saw it with you, Rob, and I also saw it with my friends Greg and Jansen. I saw it with them the second time, and hearing the awkward laughter. There were people, they didn't know when to laugh because there were a lot of jokes in there that, you know, they were like racist, but it was also in the South at the time. So you were if you're a white person, you're kind of like looking around going, can I laugh? Is it okay for me to laugh at this? You know, and I think that's the greatest thing about Django Unchained from a political and social standpoint is he gave people the freedom to laugh at that time when slavery was around, and at the same
like the whole thing with the Ku Klux Klan when they couldn't put on the masks.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good example. That was like the most commercial.
Yeah, that's when the audience was laughing the most during that part. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's easy to laugh at, you know, Ku Klux Klan, but the N-word was used like a record amount of time.
Oh yeah, Spike Lee had a problem with Tarantino using the N-word in Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown because it's a white director telling their actors to say the N-word.
Mm-hmm. And in this one, they went balls to the wall again with the N-word. They must have used it like it was, you know, like every other second. They must have used it back in the time of slavery.
But how would you respond to Spike Lee saying slavery was a serious issue? It's not supposed to be portrayed as a goddamn spaghetti western. How would you respond to that?
Wow, he said that?
Yeah.
I think that wow. It was 150 years ago, man. And while I have, you know, when I think about slavery, the way I look at it from an artistic standpoint, I get excited to see Jamie Foxx take his revenge on these slave owners. I was rooting for Jamie Foxx. For me, it was, you know, that's a difference in opinion on what cinema should be. Spike Lee's cinema, you know, most of the time is very serious. And although he has a little bit of comedy in his movies, he takes cinema too seriously for me. Tarantino has shown he can go back in time and he can take this type of character. Because Jamie Foxx's character could be in any type of movie. It could be in a Die Hard movie. It could be in a regular spaghetti western. But he put him in the time of the Deep South and slavery. And I got a chance to root for Jamie Foxx to kill these white slave owners who were brainwashing people. They were even brainwashing black people into thinking that they were supposed to be where they were at. And he goes back in time and he gets revenge on them. And he gets to, I don't want to give everything in the movie away. I know we should put a spoiler alert on this thing, but he goes back and he saves his woman. And he saves his black woman. A black man and a black woman thrived in the time of slavery, even for one day, even if they die the next day. For me, that was so cool. I had a lot of fun watching that. And if that's too hokey, or if that's not taking, you know, why do 150 years later we have to still go, oh my God, it was such a bad time in the history of our country. I know it was a bad time in the history of our country. I went to history class, but Tarantino comes along and says, you know what, let's laugh at this a little bit. Let's have some fun with this, and let's you know, and by the way, Spike, you know, what he did, even though he made it into spaghetti western, he did a very good job of portraying the propaganda that white people used in the South at that time. At the same time, he also did a really good job of making me understand their perspective. As scary as that is, I understand white people in the South. I understand their perspective because they grew up believing and thinking the same things that Leonardo DiCaprio is talking about, that blacks were inferior and whites were superior, and that there was they actually said that there was science behind why that was. Now, I don't know how historically accurate that is. You know, I'm reading a book on Abraham Lincoln and slavery right now, but my point is, I actually said to myself, holy crap, if I was a white person back in the times of slavery in the South, would I think the same way? I probably would. Thank God. I thank God that I was not born at that time, and I thank God that I was not born in the South at that time, because I probably would have had the same mindset. And in that, I say, Spike Lee, why don't you look at that from the standpoint, yeah, it's a spaghetti western, he's having fun with history, he's also bringing up some pretty damn good points that you and no other filmmaker in the last 20, 30 years brought to my attention. So that's just me. If somebody wants to fight me on that, comment. Because I think I made a pretty good point there.
You did. And if Samuel Jackson's cool with saying it, then it shouldn't be that big of a deal.
It's not a big deal to Sam Jackson, but that was one of Spike Lee's.
He said to Sam Jackson, he said, "Yo, man, just act black. Just act black."
Right. It's people take it way too seriously. I think if you're a white person like Tarantino and you have a relationship, I don't know a whole lot of black people. I work with black students. You know, and I love my black students, you know, because it doesn't matter that they're black. They do a great job in their work, and you know, they're very dedicated, just like some of my white students. But if I was like Tarantino and I was in movies and I had a relationship with black actors, I would take liberties. I would do the same thing. But Spike Lee can say what he wants to say, and you know, that's Spike Lee's right. That's Spike Lee's worldview. That's his perspective. And far be it for me or Tarantino or anyone to try and change his perspective on it. I think his voice, of course he's going to be there. And his voice and people like him are going to be there to say those sorts of things. But Tarantino's not going to stop making the movies that he wants to make, regardless of of all the fucking bullshit that Hollywood puts out nowadays. Sorry.
Right, so your favorite Tarantino movie is Kill Bill Volume 2.
Yes.
My favorite is probably Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown. It's a coin toss between those two. A lot of it has to do with the character depth. You know, I think just like Rocky had such diverse characters, I think Jackie Brown's the same way. I think that's what does it for me. The dialogue and the character variety. It's really what I love about it.
You know, I might change my opinion year to year. I love Jackie Brown so much. I can definitely. That's like a toss-up.
It's funny because Reservoir Dogs used to be your favorite. Now it's one of your least favorite.
No, Reservoir Dogs was never my favorite. No, I think Pulp Fiction was my favorite for a long time. I think I like True Romance. I think I actually like True Romance better than I think I might put that right after Kill Bill Volume 2. I love True Romance so much. And when I tell people about it, they're like, what are you, gay? Because they think I'm talking about like some Richard Gere romance comedy. I'm like, no.
Oh.
True Romance is it's a violent movie with gangsters and pimps and hookers, and it's awesome. You know? What do you want for your birthday? I want gangsters, pimps, and hookers. You know? I love True Romance. I mean, I think that might be my number 2. But I something about Kill Bill Volume 2, the cinematography, the music, and just the way that movie feels. And I mention music a lot. I mention music with video games and movies. Music is so important to me. It's not just the soundtrack; it's the way he uses music in some of his movies that makes his movies so great. And so I really, for people who go out who aren't familiar with Tarantino's work, I think the music is so important. Whether you're talking about Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, whatever. And the other thing and just another thing to note, there are some great special features on these discs.
Yeah, there's a documentary. There's a question and answers with Jackie Brown. and Robert Forster.
Yeah. If you're a real movie buff, yeah, there's a critics roundtable, and they talk for hours.
It's okay.
You have to be. I haven't watched all of it because they talk a lot. They're kind of like us, you know. So if you really like, you know, hearing other critics talk about it, it's
the Tarantino documentary is pretty cool. So that's pretty much the selling point.
But there are also special features on the movie DVDs.
Yeah, the movie DVDs are the same. It's the Pulp Fiction thing is the same. Special features is this DVD that came out.
Inglourious Bastards had more than the DVD I got. I never got the special edition of Inglourious Bastards on the single DVD. This box set has some really good special features, one of which is with Brad Pitt. Some of you guys are probably like, I could find all that crap on YouTube, dude. But
the thing that says about Reservoir Dogs is it was hilarious. They had Tarantino's rehearsal for some of the other roles.
Yeah.
It was just so fucking funny because he sucked so bad as an actor. But yeah, I wish that was on the set, but it's
right. It's not on. That's right. That's what I said. The Reservoir Dogs special features are kind of lacking on this set. So that's my only criticism.
All right. So since we're still recording, let me just say that Live Free or Die Hard, I thought that sucked. I thought that was terrible. I don't see how Derek Rose finds it inspirational trying to come back from that injury. But I know we're kind of going off topic, but what do you think of Live Free or Die Hard?
You could edit this into a different video if you want.
I'm not. Let's talk about just some extra movies.
Well, okay, you have the freedom to X out of your browser at this point, but you know, it's you know, the Die Hard franchise. You know, look, Hollywood is all about franchise movies right now. They will green light. You know, studios will do like 2 or 3 movies a year now, 2 or 3 big budget movies. Instead of doing like 6 or 7 smaller budget movies, they're going to do 2 or 3 big budget movies, and it's working for them. They're making a profit because they have more of a guarantee that the franchise movie is going to bring people into the box office. Live Free or Die Hard is a franchise movie, and you put Bruce Willis in it, he's still one of the biggest movies.
Wait, no, it's A Good Day to Die Hard. I'm sorry. It was called A Good Day to Die Hard, the new Die Hard movie.
What did you call it?
I think I called Live Free or Die Hard, which is actually Die Hard 4, which I really didn't care for that much either. But I never thought I would actually fall asleep to a Die Hard movie in a movie theater. I mean, it's just, I just didn't get into it. I just couldn't get into the plot. I didn't like the chemistry between him and his son. I thought the tension between the two, you know, the characters was just weak. I don't know. It just bored the shit out of me. There was too much action that just didn't have enough build up, and I just didn't think a lot of it made sense. And I don't know. I just did not feel like a Die Hard movie to me. I think Bruce Willis just was in it for the paycheck.
Yeah, of course he was. Bruce Willis kind of looks at these movies like Mike Tyson looks at a fight. The payday was great. The payday was great.
All right, yeah, I saw Bullet to the Head with Stallone. I don't know. It didn't make a lot of money. Wasn't really critically received very well, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. I didn't see the Schwarzenegger movie, The Last Stand, but I don't know. I thought The Rock was doing way too many movies. I think people kind of got sick of The Rock. There was, once again, you go back to oversaturation. I just thought The Rock was too much in the public eye around WrestleMania time, and who knows? I think a lot of it was planned out. So once he comes back for WrestleMania, all these movies come out. So I think there's political reasons behind his return, even though he probably won't admit it. You know, that's just my opinion.
I'm sorry.
You didn't see any of The Rock's movies?
I didn't see many of them, not the recent ones. He's been in a lot. He's been doing a lot of stuff.
Snitch looked pretty good, and the No Pain No Gain movie was pretty well received as well.
Oh, really? He also had G.I. Joe 2 and Fast and Furious 6.
Yeah,
once again, those are 2 franchise movies. Snitch looked good to me because it looked different, you know. But
yeah, I'm not a huge fan of The Rock as an actor.
I think he's okay. One movie I liked with The Rock was
Dead Man Walking.
No,
Walking Tall.
Not Walking Tall. Well, that was fun to see, but I mean, it's not a great movie. What was it? It was called Faster, and it had him and Billy Bob Thornton. Faster. And it also, that felt like a Tarantino flick. Actually,
really?
That felt like a Tarantino type of world. You know, it was a revenge movie. He was getting revenge on on the guys who killed his brother. The Rock was, and he drove this car around, you know, and he also had this big giant gun with him. That was actually I liked that movie, not just because it felt like a Tarantino movie, but there were some of the characters were really good in it too. Faster. I want to see that movie again. That was a good movie. It's creepy.
So I've pretty much seen most of Robert De Niro's best movies, but I have to say I think Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown still top all of them for me.
Yeah.
You know, there's just not one Robert De Niro movie where I could say, oh, that was just an amazing movie. There were some amazing performances, but as movies, they're not really like some of my favorites. But what would you say is De Niro's best movie?
That's a really... He's been in so many movies.
If you just had to pick one, I'll leave my... I won't give you my
He's
pick.
had so many great performances, and there's as you just said, there's a difference between a great movie and a great performance. You can have great performances in a very artsy movie. Like you can go see a very artsy movie, independent, but it could be boring. It might not have much of a bang to it. It might not have anything that really gets you excited about it. I've seen a lot of that. Over the years, because I rent movies, here and there, and I watch movies. So recently saw not a great movie, but a great performance with Sean Penn in a movie called This Must Be the Place.
Yeah. It's
called This Must Be the Place, and he plays a rock star who's past his prime, and he goes and he gets revenge. Actually, it's sort of it's not a revenge movie, but it has revenge in it. Where he goes off and he has to find the person who kept his father down in the Nazi camp in Auschwitz, and because his father dies, so he goes off to find the guy, the Nazi general who did that to him, and he goes and he finds him, and he's this blind, old, sickly man, and but that's like such a small part of what actually happens in the movie. It's a very, very slow movie, not a good movie. In fact, it's a terrible movie. I would not recommend you see it, but it's a great performance from Sean Penn and a great performance from some of the other actors.
Right.
Just not a great movie. Robert De Niro's done a lot of that over the years.
But if you just had to pick one, which would it be? We'll wrap this up.
Like just a great performance.
Well, what would you say is his best performance, or best movie, whatever?
Jesus, man, that is not easy. I think I'm probably...
So you've seen Taxi Driver?
I'm probably going to think of something after you turn the camera off and go, shit, I should have said that. But I guess I'll have to go with Taxi Driver just because... It's just that I think that's the greatest performance and greatest movie. I still pick Jackie Brown because I love Tarantino and I love his style.
But you can't say Jackie Brown's a De Niro movie, though. It's
no,
too
it's
tough
not.
to say.
It's he's in it, but it's not his movie. It's definitely
movie.
not his movie. It's not his greatest performance. No, Taxi Driver's better.
Well, I think Tarantino got things out of De Niro that a lot of the other actors or a lot of the other directors didn't really get out of him.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's a different role too.
Very different role, but I think I like that Taxi Driver role. Travis Bickle, he's very easy to relate to. It's I think we all isolate ourselves in some way, especially nowadays with technology. We isolate ourselves from the world, and and I think Travis Bickle's a very isolated, lonely man. He's God's lonely man, is what he says. And I think it's very easy to relate to that and tap into that. And I think it was ballsy for Scorsese to make a movie about that, and make a movie about this guy who's just going around. And it's also about New York City during the time of the 1970s and what it was like. And, so it's great. It's a great movie.
All right, so that's it.